All right, so the next unit we're going to talk about is absolute value. Absolute value of integers. The learning target is 1D. I can simplify integers with absolute value. A lot of people tend to think of absolute value as the opposite of a number or the opposite of an integer, but it's actually about distance. Absolute value is about distance. So absolute value is the distance of an integer from 0. All right, so let's talk about taking the absolute value of -4. Here's -4. So -4, if we're looking at the distance from 0, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 units away from 0. All right, let's take a look at another example. Let's look at the absolute value of 6, +6. So let's figure out what the distance 6 is from 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So +6 is 6 units away from 0. Now notice that even though we looked at the absolute value of a negative number, -4, and we look at the absolute value of +6, the distance away from 0 for both of those negative numbers and the positive number is positive. So anything inside of the absolute value symbol, which is here, will be positive. Any number, regardless of whether it's a negative number or a positive number, anything inside of this absolute value symbol will be positive. All right, let's look at some examples. We are going to simplify these absolute value expressions. All right, number 1, we have the absolute value of -5. So if we look on our number line, here's -5. -5 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units away from 0. So the absolute value of -5 is +5. Number 2, we have the absolute value of 8 - 3. So we need to simplify what's inside the absolute value expression. 8 - 3 equals 5. Therefore, the absolute value of 5 is 5, right? Because +5 is 5 units away from 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, let's take a look at number 3. The absolute value of 3 - 8. So we need to simplify what's inside of the absolute value expression. We are subtracting 2 integers. So remember, keep, change, change. So we'll keep the 3 the same. We don't touch it. We're going to change this minus to a plus. And then this +8 changes to a -8. So we're left with 3 plus -8, which equals the absolute value of -5. 3 plus -8 is -5. So our absolute value of -5, again, it's +5 because it's 5 units away from 0. Right? It can't be negative distance away from 0. If you were to ride your bike 1 mile to the grocery store or 1 mile forward, that's 1 mile away from where you currently are standing. But if you were to ride your bike 1 mile backwards, it's still 1 mile, even though it's backwards. It's still 1 mile that you've gone in distance. All right, so number 4 has a negative sign, and then we have the absolute value of 5 - 9. Okay. This one's a little tricky because of this negative symbol outside of the absolute value sign. So for now, I'm just going to rewrite it. Okay, this is the negative sign. And then we need to simplify the absolute value of what's inside of simplify the expression inside of the absolute value sign. So we have 5 minus 9. So we're going to keep, change. Keep the 5. We're going to change this minus to a plus. And then we're going to change this positive 9 to a negative 9. So we have 5 plus negative 9. 5 plus negative 9, when you simplify that, is negative 4. All right, so we know the absolute value is going to be a positive number because it's just the distance from 0. So the absolute value of negative 4 is positive 4. But we have this negative symbol outside of the absolute value sign, so we're just going to keep that in our answer because that does not change. That does not change. Okay. All right, let's take a look at number 5. This one gets a little bit more complicated. So we have the absolute value of negative 12 times or multiplied by negative the absolute value of negative 3 divided by negative 36. So let's break this down into parts and try to simplify this as best we can. All right, so the absolute value of negative 12 is positive 12 because the absolute value is always positive times we have this negative sign outside of the absolute value symbol. So we're going to keep that. But then the absolute value of negative 3 is positive 3. So we just got the absolute value of negative 3, which is positive 3. But since we have this negative symbol outside of the absolute value sign, we have to keep it with the negative 3. Okay, and then we're going to divide it by the absolute value of negative 36, which is 36. And it's positive. So then we just simplify. So we're going to multiply 12 times negative 3 equals negative 36 divided by 36. And then when we simplify that, anything divided by itself is 1. And we're dividing a negative number by a positive number, so we know that our answer is going to be negative. So the answer to this entire expression simplifies to negative 1. So make sure that you take notes or you took notes. Whatever you see on my screen, you should have on your paper in your math notebook. Once you're done, go ahead and take a picture and submit it in Canvas for a grade.